For this beachy sunset painting, starting out with a very big paintbrush, a little bit of water and some blue, just adding a little touch up here at the top to get it started. That's where our night sky is starting to take over, and then grabbing a little bit of purple, just kind of blending it gently onto the edge of that blue. We can push it up into the blue a little bit, push it down just to get a nice smooth blend, and then jumping into some pink right below that. And of course, as we blend it upward, it is going to turn a little bit more of a light purple. That's okay, we like that. Maybe sprinkling on a little more pink where we don't mix it as much. Still going to be a little purpley because we still haven't cleaned out this paintbrush yet, but just mostly pink. Let it be purple here or there, and then just throwing in a little bit of red. Now that red's going to be pretty harsh, so you can see we jumped right back into the pink to kind of blend that red out and soften it up with that pink, and then grabbing a little more purple and mixing it in right where that red is touching that blue. And then right here in the middle, this is actually an orange paint. It never shows up on camera quite orange, but here, let me make it a little thicker there for you. A little bit of orange, almost looks red. It's just plain orange. You can always add a little bit of red to it if you do want it a deeper color in person. It's going to be a lot better though. And then once again, jumping back to that pink just to soften up everything that we've added on there. And again, the more we go over this, the more it's going to blend those sections together. So if you want it nice and streaky sunset, like, you just got to kind of throw a couple streaks of paint on there and leave it alone. And this here is just a little bit of plain yellow. It's just a very bright yellow. Of course, it's picking up some of that wet paint and mixing, making a little bit of an orange here or there. And this is intentionally a little bit of orange and yellow mixed together as well. And then for our water down here, this is our water, just again using the same larger brush and some blue paint and just filling in wherever we want our ocean to go. So kind of just that big section where that water is going to be, and then starting to kind of get the little wave of water that pushes up onto our shoreline. So just a little bit of water, a little bit of blue paint, big paintbrush going in here, filling in the section where we really want our water ocean to be going. And this is a base coat. We're going to add a lot of other colors on top of this, so we can start to kind of play around with little dashes side to side, a little bit more white sometimes, a little bit more blue other times, just to get that little wave feeling into our ocean. But we're mostly just worried about filling this in and not making the paint super thick. And then right here, hitting the shoreline with some plain white paint. We can kind of blend that out into the water just a little bit. So white right on the shore, and then just pushing a little bit, little scoops of that white out into the ocean. And then once again, dotting on more white so that it looks like a wave. Now we are going to jump onto that sand. The sand is just a lighter brown color. You can use like a peach or like a light mocha or like a khaki. If anything's just a brown, you can try mixing in white, getting it a lighter color, and then just patting on a little bit of a darker brown kind of randomly, just to get a nice, wonderful, sandy texture into that beach. So just a lighter color, like a lighter peach or beige or something of that nature, and then a little bit of like a chocolate or nut brown kind of patted in there while it's still wet, so that everything kind of mixes together. And then this is a little bit of plain white, and not even cleaning our brush out in between those colors, just doing one after another and patting everything to where it looks like sand. And then it's time to jump back into our water, so using a little bit of a smaller brush here that's a little bit flatter so we can get some of those waves going. We're just putting all of the colors from our sky into our water. Now this is going to look a little bit chaotic the first time we do it, but this is again just a base coat to get some of the feel of the sky, the ocean. This is just going to be a whole lot of jumping between the colors we've already put on the sky, just kind of going in a random order. It doesn't actually matter. I went purple, and then this is pink. We've also got a little bit of our red, a little bit of our orange, and even some of that yellow in there, and everything is going to kind of mix a little bit in the water here, and especially with that blue, might make some weird colors. That's okay. Once again, this is just a base coat for this. Jumping back up into the sky, touching up some of those really bright colors that might not have stuck very well the first time, and then we can drag them down here at the bottom as well. So just kind of jumping around into those really bright light colors like the orange, the yellow, the pink, and putting it a little bit in the sky, putting it a little bit in the water, just kind of leaving it alone so that it doesn't continue to mix as we put it on there. Doing these little dab like or dash like marks into the water to make this look like it is really moving waves. And even though we're getting those muddled colors in between, it's kind of how it goes on a real look of the water with colors in it. Okay, jumping into the sky here. This is just white and yellow mixed together. So that same lighter, brighter yellow we used earlier, making it even brighter by adding some white paint and kind of just streaking it right through the middle of where we want our little setting sun to go. And then of course plain white in a little circle here in the middle of that lighter yellow for that setting sun. This might pick up a little bit of that yellow. That's okay. We like that. We want to let that do its natural streaky course to where even though we're putting a white circle on there, that circle might not be completely white at the end. And then reflecting that down here in the water. We might lose this reflection later on, but sometimes just having it there to start with helps us remember to add that back in when we really get going on these waves. And then jumping over here with some black paint. This is a smaller, squarer paintbrush just to throw a little bit of land out here in the background. Plain black paint with a little bit of water mixed in, just making a line where we want our land to go. And then over here on the very edge in the middle, it's really far away, so we're going to keep it really small with these teeny tiny little circular motions and that square brush just to start getting, you know, like a forest or some foliage or bushes or whatever you want to call this land in the background going, and then getting a little bit wider as we get towards the edge because this is closer to us. This is on our side from the setting sun, so it's all black. The sun's blocking out all the color that it would normally have. And then we're going to put on a couple of palm trees. Now add as many of these as you want, but your basic layout is just a little line that's skinny at the top, wide at the bottom for the palm, and then you make a little line where you want a branch, and on that line you make a whole lot of tiny lines following that branch down. Now these little palm branches are going to go in all kinds of directions, so you can do whatever you want. You can curve them a little bit sometimes like this. You can put little teeny tiny lines for those little leaves on the branch all going in one direction. You can do a line and do leaves on one side and then do the little tiny lines on the other side. You can do like a big X. Here you see at the very top of that trunk line we made a big X, and then do lines in between the X's, so like one over there to the side, one up here at the top, maybe one on the other side, maybe some coming off of the bottom. But all the little palm branches are the exact same thing. It's a line in the middle and then lines on either one or both sides of that middle line. So either like maybe you're hanging down so you only have them coming off of one side, maybe it's hanging straight down so you get on both sides. And then in the middle of the tree, just adding a few extra little lines that are kind of smaller right where the branches all meet that little trunk. This will help everything blend together because there's more than just the branches that we're showing, and it'll help it really look like a real tree. Maybe there's some coconuts hanging out up there. Who knows? You can even lay out, here we go, you can see this. We can lay out all of our little branches where we want them to be hanging out first, and then on all these teeny tiny dashes for those leaves afterwards. You can use a little angled paintbrush. Sometimes that helps to be able to use just the tip of that brush very gently. Here we go. We got one that we're putting leaves on both sides of that line for the branch. It's just kind of getting a feel for it. If we've got little extra spaces in between, we can put some little tiny branches. If you've got extra little lines going kind of crazy places, that's okay. Those branches will do that normally in real life. Plus, this is a very abstract painting, so it is absolutely okay to have it be a little bit more random or chaotic here or there, a little bit more sporadic. But all of these palms are the exact same thing. It's just that trunk that's skinnier at the top, a little bit wider at the base, and then a little line for a branch at the top with little teeny tiny lines going all the way down that line on either one side or on both sides. You can even put 2 rows of tiny lines on one side of the line for the branch so that it's just all of the leaves from both sides of that branch are all facing the same direction. You can add little circles in the middle of all of those branches to have there be teeny tiny coconuts if you like little coconuts. We can do it maybe just the leaves of a palm sticking out of the side of the painting over here because of course there's more trees and forest and beach and everything outside of this square. This square is just a small picture of our beautiful island and all these little branches coming off to the side are the exact same thing, just a little line for the branch and then teeny tiny little lines for the leaves on that. Maybe you got one tree on there and it is just so perfect you don't want to add any more. That's great. Add as many trees in your forest as you want there to be. You can add 700, you can add just one. You don't have to add any. This is exactly what you want your journey on your beach to go like. They're a little bit tricky. It's okay to practice this somewhere else before you commit it to the real thing. We're going to go over it again because there's a few more to add here on this one. So going in with the trunk first, just making a small little line for that, keeping it a little bit wider at the bottom, a little smaller at the top, maybe giving the tree a little friend right next to it, and then doing a little line for the trunk, a little line for the branch, and then teeny tiny little lines on it. And of course, when we're getting this small, they're more like little dots instead of little lines, but it's just a line for the branch, teeny tiny little lines for the leaves on that branch, and then spreading them out in all sorts of different directions so that that palm really gets the beauty of the palm in it. So maybe doing like a big X of some branches here, so with a little line, all the little lines on the little line, and then spreading out another one in between that X of little line, and then little lines on that line for those branches. And then of course another one here until everything is nice and full. We can always, especially when we're going this small, just add a whole bunch of extra little lines or dots or dabs or dashes right in the middle of that tree to make that palm look very full in the middle. And then here we go on this little bitty tree, doing another little line, more teeny tiny lines on that line, and then another little line, more teeny tiny lines on that line, just again spreading out an X of those branches, and then putting in all the little leaves on the branch that we just spread out, some of them on one side, some of them on both sides of those leaves, some of them doing 2 rows of leaves on one half of a branch so that all those leaves are facing the same direction. And then jumping back into our water here, everything's set up enough down there we can throw some of these sky colors into that ocean and really have some of them show. So this is just that pink. There's a tiny bit of red in here, and this is that same bigger, flatter brush, just doing those little dashes or dabs in the water to make it look like waves. Going in here with some pink now, spreading that out. We can kind of follow the pattern at the top where you can see it's darker at the top of the sky and then more pink and red in the middle. And then in the middle of that pink and red, go in right here with some of the orange and the yellow as well. And then we can just kind of jump around, get maybe some of the solid orange here or there, get some of the solid red here or there. We can throw a little bit of purple down there if we need some more of that purple. Hit right in the middle with this yellow and orange combination as much as we want to. We're still going to add a little bit of some blue and white into the ocean later on. So if you get a little too crazy with your color, that's okay. We might be covering some of that up. So right here in the middle, of course, where our sun is in the sky, in the middle of our water, doing that yellow and white combination to get everything really bright. There we go, dotting in a tiny bit of white in the middle of that yellow to try and get the reflection of that sun focused in there. Here we have that same brush. We've cleaned it out. We grabbed some white paint, and we're just going to jazz on to the edge of our water right here where it meets the sand, just kind of jumping back and forth, doing little dab-like marks to get this wave of water that's washing up onto the shore. Really getting a little crazy with it here. There were some of those dots, dabs, or dashes, and then just kind of fluffing on that water because it's really bubbly where that water hits the land, so don't be afraid to get it really fluffy there, and then taking that plain white, streaking it a little bit through that water, just kind of randomly. We can hit it where that blue is. We got to be careful when we get to this color part because everything's still wet. We can kind of push it into that color, and that'll help separate out some of our colors. It'll also help them look a little bit more like water. We can push in some plain white from that water edge where it's bubbling, right? We can push some plain white streaks, not like the whole thing being solid white, but just little lines of that white pushing out from where it's hitting the shore out into that water, and then just kind of start to jump into that color, doing the same thing, just kind of pushing in those little lines that we did kind of with our color. Now we're going to do it with our white to get some more of those waves bouncing around, making it look more like the ocean water is really there. remembering that in real life, as these colors kind of blend together through those waves, they're going to muddle a little bit. So it's okay if we're getting that. If it's grabbing too much of your color with the white, you can wipe it off, get fresh white, jump back in there. If you want to let this dry all the way you can, it's going to make that white very bright and it's going to pop off. So then you might do a little bit less than what we have on the example. And there is where my camera fell, so I had to readjust the painting. Here we go, same brush. Now we're going to jump back into that blue, the blue we first put into our ocean way back when. It's the same blue as at the top of the painting, but with a little bit of white mixed in. And we're doing the same thing, just adding little lines of the blue for the water. That's just where it's more of a wave and less of the color reflecting off of the sky, and not turning everything blue, just jazzing it in between to get that wonderful water flow for the ocean and break up where it's a little too much color. And that's it. That's your painting. It looks wonderful. It looks amazing. You've done a great job. I love your beach sunset. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe for next time, and I'll see you soon.